This episode of the Podular Modcast is brought to you by Recovery Effects and Devices. Quality handmade effects and modules paying homage to classic synth and effects designs while innovating for today's studios and musicians. Hello, my name is Tim Held. Welcome to the Podular Modcast, where we
scale the sonic peaks of modular synthesis.
Hey gang, welcome to another episode of the Podular Modcast. Today's guest is Chad Allen. He is a co-founder, co-owner of Switched On Austin, an amazing synth shop, and really much more than a synth shop, as you'll see when we get into our talk. But my fiance and I were down in Austin, Texas for a wedding, and it was also the first weekend of South by Southwest. This episode is a product of serendipity. It was really funny. I hadn't planned on doing an episode while I was down there because I really didn't have any I didn't want to bring all the recording equipment that it would take to do that. But a few days before I left, Ian and I had a talk with Leela Smith, whose episode will be coming out pretty soon, and she had this Zoom H6 field recorder that she asked if we wanted because she thought we would get better use out of it. So this was like literally a few days before we left. So I reached out to Switched On to see if anybody would want to talk. I got an email response from Chad. I wasn't sure who he was in relation to the company. All I knew is I was meeting him there Saturday morning at noon. So yeah, I woke up, walked across Austin and ended up at Switched On, and we sat down and had a really nice chat. I want to thank Chad for his patience because I had zero preparation for this, and I was actually pretty nervous for some reason, being out of town, and he has no idea who I was, and I was coming into his house, and I don't know. I'm still figuring out how to be a podcast host. So yeah, thanks Chad. That was really cool. So funny story about the music that you hear right now, this intro music. It is by Panabright, or Norm Chambers, who is a friend of the show from Seattle. I've played some shows with him in the past, and I think Ian has too. But Panabright is kind of a staple in the ambient modular community. Not just Seattle, but the greater ambient modular community. But anyways, spoiler alert, at the end of the episode, I asked Chad for some recommendations of some Austin labels or artists, and he recommended a label. I'll let him tell you about it. But when I got out of the shop, I was waiting for my lift, and I looked at Instagram, and I saw a picture that Norm had posted of the cover of the compilation album that Chad had just told me about because he's on it. So I thought that was pretty funny. So all in all, I had a really great time in Texas. Austin is amazing. Switched On was so cool. If you're listening to this podcast, then I think it's safe to say that if you close your eyes and imagine your heaven, Switched On is probably pretty close to what you're seeing. And if you're anything like me, dear listener, you're wondering, what did you get while you were there? Well, Chad was nice enough to load me up with a tote bag with 3 different Switched On shirts and a cool Switched On screwdriver for mounting my modules. And I bought a WMD DPLR delay. It's super cool. So we're about to get to our talk, but I just wanted to say one thing that's going to be a little bit different about this week's episode is there's no patch challenge because it would have just been, honestly, I felt like it would have been too much of an imposition to ask. And after talking to Chad, he's so cool. I'm sure he would have been fine with it, but that's my fault. I got nervous about asking to hook some stuff up, and I really didn't want to interrupt their showroom. So this was all done very quickly. So instead, I'm gonna play some tracks from some of the music that Chad recommends at the end of the episode. I hope you guys check it out, and I hope you enjoy this talk. Thanks again. So you are owner, proprietor, founder of Switched On.
Yeah, one of.
Okay.
Yep.
And how'd you get started? What was the impetus of a synth shop?
On my end, I had been buying and selling synths for like 3 years, I guess, before we started the shop. John French and I had been working on music for a while, collaborating on things. We had a little record label for a second, putting out just Austin electronic groups on 7-inch, stuff we'd produce and then release. And John, had a pretty good electronic music studio at his house. So, just working together and being friends and both wanting to do something like this. And then we met someone named Guy Taylor, who helped us start the shop. He brought in some other people. We started with Lars Larson from LZX Industries, was our first web designer and repair tech, and really helped us form the brand.
Modular's kind of been like, has it been something that you've been selling the whole time, just kind of in a smaller section of the store, or in something that's grown, or how?
It's definitely grown, yeah. I mean, just because the market's grown a lot, but it's not the only thing we do for sure. It's just a part of what we do. Even though it's really popular, we do a variety of things and try to kind of serve the whole spectrum of electronic music. People who just want to use old things, or get their old things fixed, or trade in their old things for new things. Yeah. We try to have a little bit of all of that galaxy of electronic music.
Okay, so you guys got employees who are just primarily, working on stuff for people, fixing old stuff or repairs. And yeah, you just gave me a tour. It's quite the facility. Nice, awesome shop in the back.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any designers or builders that work here, or are you guys working on any like?
Yeah. I mean, one of our techs is Dr. Bleep, John Mike Reed from Bleep Labs, who made a bunch of great instruments this century. And he's sort of moved into more of like a teaching role. So he's been teaching our classes. He teaches at the community college. He teaches for a company called Data Geek, which I think he taught an Arduino class recently. And he does some repair here, which is nice. And I'm trying to think if any of our other techs really make their own things or have designed things for other people to sell. And I would say they're mostly doing repair. I mean, they've all kind of worked for other companies and whatnot, but we don't have any people who are designing modules or anything like that right now.
Now, you mentioned classes. So you guys teach different types of classes here at the store?
Yeah, we teach them here at the store. Kind of clear out some space in the big repair room that you saw in the back there.
Okay. What are some examples of the classes?
We've been teaching just Introduction to Synthesis, which has been really popular. There are a lot of people who need to learn that as their first step and are eager to learn that right now. And we teach sort of a class that follows up on that, intermediate synthesis class that focuses more on modular. We've taught a no-coast class that's specifically the no-coast.
Cool.
And learning fundamentals of synthesis with the no-coast or zero-coast or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's a really great introduction to modular, I think. I think they really hit it out of the park with that little guy.
Yeah, it's really special and continues to inspire people, which is a good sign.
And the Contour and the Optimix, those were kind of popular demand, right? Everybody liked those functions of the no coast so much that they make noise kind of. Isn't that what happened? Yeah,
essentially. I mean, it's funny because they already kind of had a version of that. I mean, the Contour, you could say the function or the maths, because they're slope related, and the Dynamics and the Optimix being, similar enough. So I'm not really sure, aside from maybe it's cheaper to produce the Contour and the Dynamics.
Yeah, I just picked up a Contour and have been really blown away with how cool it is for its price point.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really I'm thinking about getting another one actually.
Yeah. Do you already have a maths or function?
I'm building a Rampage, a Bifaco.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Just ordered the faders, so hopefully in a few weeks I'll have that.
Yeah.
The class thing sounds cool. I know Patchworks is doing some stuff like that. They have a weekly soldering night where they have someone there who's just kind of a skilled builder, and people bring in their own projects, their broken stuff, and kind of learn how to maintain and build stuff. So
Yeah, that's really essential.
yeah.
And you know, we had a big scene of that right around the time Switched On started. I don't remember what exactly they called it at the time, but it was very kit oriented. So a lot of different designers here in town were making their own kits, and they all interacted together with infrared light. There'd be a new kit each month. It was a really fun scene, and that kind of split up and spread out as people moved away or focused in on their own companies. It was fun.
Yeah, so a lot of the Portland builders started here.
Yeah.
I was told recently. So like, was it 4MS started in Austin?
Yeah, 4MS, Maleco.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I mean, you know, Lars from LZX lived here for a little bit, but he was mainly based in Denton, Texas. Who else? I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody.
I know this
Debbie
is
Ever, just
okay.
mainly a pedal builder.
Yeah, I had some of Debbie's fuzz pedals.
Yeah.
when I was playing more guitar. So obviously Austin is a music town. Everybody talks about that. What's the electronic scene like, and more specifically, is there like a modular scene here?
Yeah, definitely a modular scene. But the electronic music scene here is fragmented by, you know, different styles of electronic music.
Right. So, yeah.
Like Exploded Drawing is very much like a beat rhythmic based community here in town. They just released a compilation of their 7 years of people getting together and sharing the stuff they're working on. It was very like process oriented.
Okay.
People would get together and perform, but maybe perform just so they could get feedback on what they're working on.
Okay.
Like maybe it wasn't a finished product, wasn't even planned to be a finished product, but they were going to share it anyway. So it's this cool thing that's kind of built up around Exploded Drawing. We have like an experimental night that's thriving called Me, My, Mare, Mo Mondays. I hope I got that right. And that's a whole different thing. That's maybe more noise oriented or just avant-garde in general. Some modular performers perform there. But it's more of a catch-all for just obscure forms of music, I think.
Seems like a small enough town where there would be a lot of crossover and kind of you know, everybody kind of knows everybody type.
Yeah, there's some occasional crossover for sure. We have more of a little live PA techno kind of scene. Survives, is from here.
Right.
We have that whole scene. So yeah, and there's crossover, and I feel like Switched On has always been like a good crossover point where we've, when we host a show, we've hosted a lot of the different acts, whether it's a holodeck showcase, and we have a lot more like melodically oriented electronic music, or a more experimental showcase, or our modular nights where people just get up and share something modular wise.
Right. Yeah, we have a modular on the spot faction up in Seattle, and I just they're alternating now. They're doing modular on the spot one night a month, and then the next, or one day in one of the nice beautiful parks we have in Seattle, and then they do modular nights now, and they just kicked one off, and I just did that. It was one of my first primarily modular performances, so it was.
Did it go well?
Yeah. Okay.
It's tricky, isn't it?
It really is, and I don't have enough gear right now. I played for 15 minutes, and I would say that the patch that I built for that was an interesting 7-minute patch. I changed it up enough, but after about 7 minutes, I think it was done.
When I think about modular performances like that, I, in my mind, think if I were going to do it, I would try to aspire more towards the performer who just uses one instrument. So we have a number of performers who just use a synthi, for example, and which is essentially semi-modular synth, but something really limited and simple. Or someone who just uses a Buchla music easel, for example. When I think of a Eurorack modular, I think, oh, okay, well, I have actually way more power there, but somehow, all those choices make it more difficult to make that really like pure, simple music that someone might make with a synthi or an easel.
Yeah, it's so open-ended, and so many choices and paths you could go down, to where it's almost kind of debilitating in a way.
It can be.
It's kind of like trying to find new music to listen to without asking people you trust. It's Speaking of all this playing live and music, do you have a moniker, or do you play out live, or?
I haven't been lately. No,
Yeah.
I'm taking a break from that, kind of trying to figure out what the next thing is.
Yeah.
Like having all these different styles of music now that we can experience makes it much harder to decide which direction to go.
I'm totally with you, man. That's one of the reasons I got into modular. It was just so fascinating, and my style of approaching creating music. It almost seems like modular was made like I don't know. It's like the perfect thing for me, because I'm kind of a throw things at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
So I can just. But yeah, I feel you on that. It's I'm experimenting with playing guitar with modular stuff, but
Yeah, it's really fun.
it's really fun, but I think it's hard to do in a not cheesy and in an interesting way for me personally.
Yeah.
Like I gotta find that groove still. But currently, what kind of modular setup do you like to use, or do you have right now? Or?
I don't have anything at home at the moment. My last system employed mostly mutable and make noise stuff.
Okay.
I was really kind of happy with just a small 104 HP system. Didn't take up a lot of space. It was really efficient, but I could do 3-4 parts multi-timbral music with it. Using a BeatStep Pro, it was really convenient. But yeah, now I kind of reinvested in some vintage things that are kind of waiting to be serviced, which takes a little time, and hopefully create something new out of that.
Okay. If you're going to be launched out into space to orbit the Earth for a year by yourself, you could only bring 5 modules with you.
Oh, 5 modules.
Yeah.
Okay.
What would you bring?
5 maths.
I've been surprised with the lack of maths on the list. I
Really?
thought maths would be I think it's only been on 2 people out of the 10 that I've done so far.
I mean, I've really learned modular with a surge system. So to me, the slope is the be-all, end-all of synthesis modules. I love a good filter, but you can get, a little of the way there.
Yeah.
So, if we're talking Eurorack modules, the mass. If we're talking, a 5-module surge panel, then, was never a big smooth-stepped fan. I like the Woggle Bug a lot. That version of it's really fun, but yeah, something about the slope. And when I finally get to play with the Paperface system, it seemed like a lot of the modules were just different variations on the slope. And I love something fundamental about that. I really, really appreciate the simplicity of it, and it's limited in a way that's limitless. It does so many things, but at the same time, it's really like simple to address, simple to work with. So there's a bunch of other modules I like, but how to decide,
It's really tough. And like I said, it's not really very realistic, because trying to have 5, that's kind of the bare minimum just to get some noise happening. And I don't count Output Mixer as one of them.
Okay, good. But yeah, I mean, I could make do with, I really loved, in my last system, I, had a maths and an MMG, and I think I had a maths and a function, because I just loved the slope so much. And I don't really necessarily need it to be quantized or... So working with the, a slope as an oscillator, I'm fine with it being microtonal or atonal, so long as there's some variation in pitch.
Yeah.
But what else is good? I feel like, a René sequencer would be really handy, just because there's, I don't own one, so I feel like owning one, you could really get deep with it.
Yeah, that thing looks pretty crazy.
I feel like I'm never using it to its full potential, but I like that module a bunch. I really enjoyed my braids and my rings, just for creating like immediate, pleasing textures.
Yeah.
It's just so like instantly enjoyable. I've yet to play with the plates. We just got our plates in, but they're all sold already.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to get to use one.
Yeah, I was just talking to Johnny out in the storefront there about that, and I asked him what he thought of it, and he said they're just gone. They're already gone.
We forgot to keep one.
Yeah, I use a braids, and I like it. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out who I am modular wise.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know. Do we ever really figure it out?
I hope not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's part of the.
Hope it's always a quest.
Yeah, I was always I was looking for guitar pedals like 8 years ago. I was and amps. I was looking for the right combination of guitar, amp, and pedals. And I was talking to like my guru, the local store guy, and I was like, man, I gotta find some. I'm getting close, but I haven't arrived there yet. And I was kind of expressing this frustration, and he said, "You don't want to arrive there, because if you do, then what are you going to do next?" And
hopefully, just make music.
yeah,
right?
well, yeah, I guess that's the idea. Yeah, right now I'm chasing down modules so much I'm barely even making music with them.
Yeah,
that kind of makes me think of the old Euro crack.
Oh, sure.
Thing.
Yeah.
And being a store owner, I'm sure you've witnessed that with people who are just diving in. You probably see a lot of repeat customers coming in looking feverishly. And have you noticed an age thing, or is it across the board? I'm kind of seeing a lot of young people getting very into modular recently.
It's across the board, mostly because young people can't afford to get too involved in it. We get a bunch of teenage kids coming into the store, but they're more apt to get Volcas and boutiques than they are to get even a Mother 32 or a No Coast. Even though some of the luckier kids are able to start with a No Coast or something, but yeah, it's really across the board. We get people who've been making electronic music for since the 70s. Who are coming in and buying stuff. People who are retired and and just really enjoying spending their time now making sounds. And then people who are in their 20s who are performing, using a lot of modular right now. Yeah, it's a nice range.
I've noticed lately going out playing or attending shows, a lot less laptops.
Yeah.
And a lot more modular or semi-modular gear. And I kind of have my own theory on that, but not to like ask you about a theory you may have never thought of, but do you have any thoughts on why that might be? Like,
well, first of all, there's better equipment available now. 10 years ago, maybe you needed to bring out your laptop, but now it's not as necessary. Also, there's a huge laptop stigma. A lot of people don't want to see a laptop on stage. It feels like cheating.
Right.
Like, oh, my computer is for surfing the internet and buying things. It's not for creating, which I think is a bit of a shame because it's such a powerful tool.
For sure.
And really, the best way to go about things is to take a little bit from every area. Use your computer with your Eurorack, with something from the 70s. And automatically, you're harnessing the power of what it is to be alive and creating in this, in 2018.
Right, yeah.
Where we actually have the ability to take all these things and incorporate them together and make something magical as a result. It's kind of amazing that we can do that.
Yeah. So. Well, that was some sage wisdom right there. Anybody listening like that felt weird about using a laptop, I think you're right. You if you use it in the right way, because I think the stigma with laptops is you can cheat so easily with them.
Sure.
Maybe I think.
And what is cheating though?
Exactly. I've wrestled with that a lot too.
It's really it's going to be in the eye of the beholder. And I think if you're doing something that's connecting enough people and speaking to enough people, it doesn't matter if you use a laptop.
Totally.
I mean, if you look at the biggest performers, there's computers involved, and they're obviously touching the most lives. Whether or not their music is the most interesting,
right?
Doesn't matter. But certain people have learned that, I can incorporate this in a way that doesn't alienate people.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's right. I got into electronic music and went right into like the Ableton thing for just performing. I did all my recording with hardware and Logic, and then I spent hours and hours creating the song and mixing it and everything, and then hours creating the samples to put into Ableton and then hours like building it. But then by the time I was at the end, it was so streamlined to where I was just bored. Like when I'd play the show, I'd just like push a button and I was fading stuff in and playing guitar with it. But I think that was another thing that was very attractive to me with modular. But after having gotten into it and wanting to incorporate guitar, I am kind of seeing some avenues where bringing a laptop into it would be, and you just made me feel a lot better about maybe doing this.
Yeah, I mean, as long as what you're doing is honest and I think it's, however you want to do that's fair game. I think.
Is there any plan for the future? You guys want to expand, or are you just kind of? I mean, you guys got quite a cool thing going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think really, instead of expanding, just taking advantage of what we've created here and making it more useful and more purposeful and making it useful for everybody. Trying to be at service for our community, and I guess that's the important thing.
That seems to be something you guys have in common with Patchworks, with the classes and everything, and the throwing the events. Is just being a nice hub for people. So we all thank you guys for stuff like that. That's such a cool service and experience to provide people with.
Yeah, I think, culture building is my main goal. Obviously, we have to make money to make this whole thing work, but I'd rather not. I'm always a little disturbed by kind of the quicker, cheaper, faster movement that we're all seeing, because it does push real culture and effort to the wayside, I think. Yeah.
Not to throw anybody under the bus, because I like the Volca series, but stuff like that and the Roland Boutique stuff, like it's a double-edged sword. It seems like it's kind of like when laptops became usable, like it kind of opened the door for a lot of people to just jump in without maybe cutting their teeth on real instruments first or something.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's always the question. Is it? I mean, it seems at the outset like a good thing. Like if more people can make more music more easily and express themselves more easily, maybe that's a good thing. But then, there's always more to wade through to find the good stuff.
Yeah. I'm waiting for Korg to start making modules.
I don't think they ever will. I think they let Roland do it first to kind of see like, what's that look like? Didn't work out for Roland so much, even though I honestly I'm surprised more people didn't understand the era modules for what they were capable of.
Are they the kind of more recent, like the black, the kind of big fat black ones?
Yeah, I mean they're already gone.
Oh, really?
They came and went.
Oh, wow.
But it's a whole like virtual modular environment.
Okay.
If you want it to be, or it can just be an effect.
Right.
I mean, they're a Roland product, so they're like the engineering compared to another smaller Eurorack company is strange by comparison, and they require a lot of power, but having something that integrates with your wireless device really easily and allows you to I need 2 sample and holds, a delay, and a couple other LFOs in an instant, like it's pretty useful.
Yeah. It seemed like all of the modules looked the same.
Yeah.
And they were all the same price.
Yeah.
And I think
they're really kind of all the same module. Because of that virtual app-based environment. So maybe they should have just put out one.
Yeah, maybe
with different firmware you could install. But I don't think Korg's going to do it. I think what I'm hoping is that they'll just come out with a 2600 clone, and that will be their contribution.
Right. Yeah, and the MS-20 is also super fun and pretty affordable for what it is.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I've been really enjoying about Korg is the quality of stuff they're putting out lately and its price point. I mean, I really don't want to sound like I was trashing the Volca series earlier, because I've used the Volca beats for like 3.5 years. It's one of my favorite things. So
yeah, it's great. I mean, complain about the snare all you want, but it's
the snare does leave something to be. Yeah,
it sounds like it does.
Uh-huh.
We could complain about the 808 snare if we wanted to, because it sounds like it does. But,
right. Right. I love this city. I just gotta share like 2 stories with you, and one of them is just a question, and pardon my language, but on my way here, I saw this guy with a lot of cardboard signs.
Yeah.
And they were all stacked on top of each other, so I could only read one, but I could see the one under it, and I could tell it said the same thing, but in different font and a different sign.
Uh-huh.
And he seemed to be maybe not of the soundest of mind.
Sure.
But, oh God, I'm trying to remember what it said. It said, "No stalking, fuck ass." Is that a thing here, or is that just...
I'm not sure what that means.
Okay.
That's the first time for me hearing that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a slogan that the city is putting forth or anything. I don't think it's viral marketing.
Right.
If that's what you're asking.
No, never mind. That's not a good question. I'm trying to ask a question without sounding like I'm trashing anything, but I've noticed a lot of local businesses are allowing big companies to rent their space out for events and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just saw this beautiful stonemason building. It's like just a gorgeous old building, a nice lawn picket fence around it and everything. Mm-hmm. And then all these atrocious lift signs in the yard, and I don't know. Did anybody approach you guys about doing anything like that? Or are you too far out of town? Or
I think we're too, I mean, even though a lot of corporations are trying to capitalize on, the cool factor of niche businesses, I haven't really gotten it too much. In the old shop, someone was filming a Chobani yogurt commercial.
Okay.
And they wanted like a shot of like people repairing things and then eating Chobani yogurt. So we're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
You can pay us money for that. That's odd, Our name's not involved, but it never made the final cut, luckily. But it's stuff like that. It's very odd.
I mean, I get it from the business standpoint, because it could be a great way to make half your year's money that you need to make.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, it's kind of I was just wondering if any of like the viral marketing people have put their finger on the pulse of how popular Synthesis is getting, and I'm glad to hear that Lyft hasn't come here and tried to take over the showroom.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've gotten plenty of like stuff where they want to pass the building in a commercial, like a car commercial, car drives by, a building or something. I don't know. Selling out is, there's always degrees of selling out, and I don't think we've been offered the really big opportunity to sell out, which
right.
I don't know that, we're that interested in that. But but little things, if it's like, oh, okay, this makes us more visible and doesn't really doesn't hurt anybody, mm-hmm. then that's a good thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like what you were saying about using a laptop.
Yeah.
If you do it honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is a business. That was kind of a poorly formed question. It was just something that popped into my head as I saw these beautiful buildings. And
it's an interesting idea for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, in an age when, companies are constantly trying to reinvent themselves to seem more authentic. Mm-hmm. They have to mine every little subculture to get there. And it's, frequently really disingenuous and insulting.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That's how I feel about it. And again, I do not want anybody to think that I'm trashing any of these businesses that have allowed this to happen to their establishments, because, I get it. I saw this shipping container bar, mm-hmm. and I was like, that's a really cool place. So I walked over, and inside it said like the Pinterest something. Like, and I was like, oh, well, that doesn't fit. That just doesn't make sense. But yeah, it looked like a cool little venue.
Yeah.
So I'm not here for South by. I'm here for a wedding. It just happens to be And
Interesting timing.
yeah, I kind of feel like I would rather be here when it's not happening.
Yeah,
to
it's
get
different.
the full. But I've heard that a lot of the locals run for the hills. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it's also spring break for a lot of people. So, we get an influx of people, but also an exodus. We have a university that university population is about the same as the South by Southwest incoming tourist population.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like an interesting replacement.
Oh, weird. Is that Texas A&M?
It's University of Texas
University
at Austin.
of Texas. Okay.
Like 60,000 people. It's like the University of Washington in Seattle.
Yeah.
Is also one of the biggest schools in the U.S., right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of sequestered to its own spot.
Yeah.
Have you been to Seattle?
Yeah.
Yeah,
A few times.
I think I was just talking to somebody who was on the same flight from Seattle, but we were talking about how no one really likes to go out to shows in Seattle, and I think I have a theory that a lot of that has to do with physical geography. Our neighborhoods are very people don't like to leave their neighborhood.
Yeah.
As I was thinking about the physical geography of where we live and how that could affect show attendance and how a small scene like what we have could be so fragmented.
Yeah.
As I got here and saw there's really nothing on the horizon, when I landed in the airport, it's just very flat. And a lot of your downtown area is actually like where the cool hangouts are.
Yep.
What's your show attendance like? I'm just kind of thinking about that. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's still really big. I mean, the city's growing so much and there's so many people coming in that there's just more people to go to shows.
Right.
And there's more shows, so it spreads out, but generally, a lot of the venues are still pretty central.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, spread out too far from the center.
Yeah.
Luckily. So, everyone getting to the center is a lot easier, even though everyone has to live further and further out.
Right.
At least, the shows are in the middle of things always.
So you guys get pretty decent like electronic show turnouts here for local artists?
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. Hey, Seattle, get off your asses. I mean, we have people come out, but
cold
it's
and rainy.
Yeah, yeah. It's been really nice to walk around in shorts all day. Well, that's cool. I'm glad to hear that there's. I mean, I know there's a lot of music here, but I feel like electronic music, especially kind of more abstract stuff that in the modular world, experimental or it's a little more niche, so may not
definitely. I mean, when you talk about abstract music, I mean, not a lot of people want to listen to abstract music. They never have. So
right. Yeah.
it has to always have a bit more of a beat to it to get people attracted. But,
yeah. It's funny. I'm a big fan of this band called Mount Erie from Washington, and are you familiar?
I've heard of Mount Erie. Yeah.
Okay, so he kind of ranges from some folky stuff to very he kind of brings black metal influence into indie, but also noise and experimentation. And
cool.
I was listening to one of his more noisy experimental things, this kind of a drone, and my fiance was just like, "What do you get out of this? Like, do you like?" She like looked at me and genuinely asked, like, "Do you enjoy what's happening right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is like one of my favorite parts of this record." So it's just funny, like the different things people are into, but
that's one thing I really haven't figured out about people is taste and why do people like the things they do and strongly dislike other things. I'm not really sure that anyone's decisively understood why people form like small groups of fans of how people collect together to just appreciate one specific idea musically and stand apart from other forms of music. I don't know why that works that way.
Yeah, I think it's just there's so many variables in it. Yeah. So it's a case by case thing. Sonically engaging or like an experience that is tied to a sound that you heard during that experience, like I'm on this trip, I'm like trying to find new music while I'm here. So if I find something I love in 10 years, that will be my Austin album. It'll always remind me of which is so there's like that component of it, and then there's also the familiarity component. Oh, this sounds like this other thing that I like. Yeah, it's just, and then unfortunately, I think a lot of it has to do with, especially for younger people, how do the other people around them feel about it, and how do they feel about them feeling good or bad about it? So
so liking things in terms of creating an identity to fit within a certain community that you want to fit into.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think modular is ripe for that. I think that's one of the things
totally.
that people are so into about that. Like, I've noticed it in Seattle. So like I said, it's a small but fractured scene. Patchworks has been a huge kind of hub for people. It's, it's kind of located in, that's totally central, but everybody has to travel to get there. It's in a weird part of town. Yeah. So, and I kind of get the vibe that that's happening here too. Yeah. So that's really cool. I think I could probably go on and wax poetically about this, but I really appreciate your time and showing me around the shop. Yeah. And do you have anything you want to tell people to check out since we have you here? Any bands, record labels? Or?
Oh, gosh. I've got a megaphone. We have great things here in Austin. I think people are familiar with Holodeck Records.
Okay.
They were kind of, started by guys who were in Survive and branched out from there, incorporated other bands, and there are more people involved in that now. That's been a really good kind of cauldron for our music scene and has given birth to a lot of different things and supported a lot of different things. I'm really appreciative of that. I think that's going strong. Some of the people here in the shop who work in the shop are on that label. And then kind of on the other side, we have, like Exploded Drawing and that whole scene, which I think people should check out as well. There's a bunch of new records kind of involved with that. It's pretty excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to actually go check out all that stuff when I get some internet access. Yeah. And maybe those will become my albums that I was talking about earlier.
Your Austin albums capturing this moment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, right on. Thanks again. Check out Switched On if you're out in Austin. I think you probably can order off of your guys' website too if you wanted.
Yep.
And if you need something repaired, this is the place to go.
There's some good people in Seattle I've worked with, and in Vancouver, but if they're shy about anything, chances are we might be able to fix it. So
right on. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. That was a fun talk. Thanks again, Chad. So I'm going to take a few minutes to walk you through some of my favorite tracks from those compilation albums that Chad just recommended. This song that you hear right now is Kyle Dixon's Dat Way from the Holodeck Vision 1 compilation album. Kyle's a member of the band Survive, which is best known for scoring the TV show Stranger Things. Before we get into our next track, I wanted to give a shout out to the record store End of an Ear in Austin. They had an awesome local selection. They had a really good selection of holodeck cassette tapes, and I got a couple of those, one by an artist that goes by Future Museums and another by VVV or Triple V. I'm not sure exactly, but pronunciation aside, I have a record by VVV that was released on Hush Hush Records, which is owned and operated out of Seattle by KEXP DJ Alex Reuter, who has been a great friend of the electronic community here in Seattle. So it's cool to see that.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take you on this journey. This is how I sit down to practice. But I want to say one thing to you. Under normal circumstances, I don't do mine as slow as I used to. I just took it up a little bit of a notch. And that notch is where the feel is. But the attitude is the same.
So So this isn't really modular music, but it's still really cool. It's from the Exploded Drawing 7 Years compilation. The track is called Boom Baptist, and the artist is Sapphire.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is me.
Yeah. Oh man, I've been really loving that one. All right, let's get back into some modular music. This is Curved Light from the Holodeck Vision 1 compilation album, and the song is called Endgame Scenario. All right, next up, I'm going to do one more from the Exploded Drawing compilation album, 7 Years compilation. This song's called Solar Shield by Star Destroyer, and I kind of get a tobacco Flylo hybrid feel from this one. It's pretty cool. that'll conclude this episode. Thanks again to Chad and Switched On, and go to Bandcamp and check out Holodeck Records and Exploded Drawing. We'll see you next week.